The photo hit my palm like a bullet. Tux on. Boutonniere fresh. Less than an hour before the ceremony. In it, my bride. In bed. With my brother. The timestamp? 4 months ago. The same week she said she needed space to think. And the one who handed me that envelope? The best man. My name is Luke. And this is the story of how my wedding fell apart before the music even started. I need you to understand something before we go any further. This isn't a story about two people who just slipped up. This was premeditated. This was betrayal in a tailored suit. Growing up, Caleb was always the star. He had charm in his back pocket, confidence in his voice, and a laugh that made people lean in. I didn't resent him. Not really. I admired him. I thought he made the world brighter. I was the steady one, the planner, the guy who handled bills, fixed mom's roof, and made sure nobody forgot Aunt Patty's birthday. I didn't shine. I held the flashlight while other people did. So when Samantha came into my life and chose me, not Caleb, not some other smooth-talking dreamer, I felt like I'd finally won something honest, something real. We met during a volunteer weekend for Habitat for Humanity. I was hammering siding. She was painting trim with 3 little kids hanging off her shoulders. She made me laugh before she even said hello. And when she did, I swear, I saw the rest of my life without even trying. She was thoughtful, spontaneous in that Pinterest way I didn't know I needed. We balanced each other. She called me her constant. I called her the lightning. We were supposed to be forever. The night we got engaged, Caleb was the first person I called. He just moved back from Seattle, said he was done chasing dreams, and wanted to put roots down. I told him I wanted him by my side when I said, I do. He said he'd be honored. I didn't know he'd already crossed that line. That while I was pricing napkin rings and arguing over DJ playlists, he was sleeping with the woman I thought I was building a life with. But here's the part that'll really gut you. He didn't just cheat with her. He watched me plan the wedding. He stood next to me at the engagement party, toasted our love, helped me pick a tie color, all while knowing what he'd done. And he didn't tell me until less than an hour before I was supposed to walk down that aisle. When I asked him why, he said it wasn't the right time. Said he'd wrestled with it. Said he thought they were done, that it was just a mistake. A mistake, he repeated, because the envelope didn't just hold one photo. It held 6. Different angles. Different days. Same 2 people. Same room. Same betrayal. I looked at him, my brother, my best man, and I didn't see the kid who shared bunk beds and Pokemon cards. I saw a stranger who blew up my life and handed me the detonator. I didn't say a word, just closed the envelope, and walked out of the groom's suite, with one decision left to make. Walk down that aisle like nothing happened, or blow the whole damn thing up. I stood behind the chapel doors, staring down the aisle I was supposed to walk. White rose petals lined the runner. Samantha's cousin was at the piano, fingers hovering, waiting for the cue. Guests had started to settle, fanning themselves with programs and whispering in that excited hush weddings always seem to bring. And me? I was frozen, envelope in my pocket, hands numb, chest tight. Caleb was still in the groom's suite. I'd left him there after he dropped the bomb, after he said, "You deserve to know," like he hadn't been the one hiding it in the first place. But the worst part? I wasn't shocked. Not really. Looking back, there were cracks. Little moments I brushed off. Samantha's phone lighting up at odd hours. Caleb showing up at our place when I wasn't home, just dropping something off, he'd say. Or the time I came back early from a trip and found her flustered, makeup half done, claiming she just decided to get dressed up for herself. I wanted to believe her. So I did. That's the thing about trust. It's not something you build brick by brick. It's something you hand over, hoping the other person values it the same. And when they don't, it's not just betrayal. It's identity theft. Because suddenly you don't know what's real of them, or you. I turned away from the aisle, walked out the side exit. The air hit me like a slap, sharp, loud with birds and traffic and life that didn't care what was happening inside that church. I paced, called Mark, my oldest friend. Not in the wedding party, he lived out of state, but the guy who knew me better than most. He answered on the second ring. You good? I'm about to blow up my wedding, I said. My voice didn't shake. That scared me. A pause. Then, what happened? I told him. Quickly. Fact by fact. No emotion. Just the kind of tone you use when telling a cop your license plate. When I finished, he didn't curse. Didn't rant. He just said, do what gives you peace. Not what keeps you polite. Those words hit hard. Because I knew what peace looked like. And it wasn't standing in front of an altar next to someone who had already chosen someone else more than once. So I made my decision. I walked back inside. Not to the chapel. To the bridal suite. Samantha was there, surrounded by women. Her mom. Her sister. A photographer with a camera raised and waiting. The room smelled like perfume and fresh hairspray, like a celebration waiting to happen. She turned when I opened the door. And for half a second, she smiled. Reflex, maybe. Or guilt pretending to be love. Then she saw my face. The envelope in my hand. And her smile dropped like glass off a shelf. Luke, she started. I raised one hand. Not to silence her. Just to hold the moment still. I needed that. A single breath of control. I'm not here to fight, I said. I'm not here to yell. But I can't marry someone who's still tangled up in someone else. She looked like she wanted to deny it. But then I pulled out the photos. Didn't show them. Just let the weight of that envelope speak. I don't care if it was once, I said. Or a dozen times. You made a choice. And you made it more than once. Her mother stepped forward. What is this? Samantha tried to speak. Tried to find words. But the truth had already filled the room, thick and heavy. I turned to her sister. I'm sorry for what this day became. And then I walked out. Past the flowers. Past the whispers. Out into the sun. Where I finally breathed like a man who hadn't been breathing in months. I didn't go home. I went to a cheap motel on the edge of town. The kind with ice machines that never work and curtains that don't quite close all the way. I needed space. Not just from her. From the version of me that believed this was forever. I took off the tux. Washed my face. Sat on the edge of the bed staring at nothing for what must have been an hour. And then the door knocked. I opened it. Caleb. Still in his best man's suit. Looking wrecked. Not just guilty, hollow. I didn't mean for it to happen, he said. I know, I said. That's what makes it worse. He looked confused. So I clarified. If you had meant it, if this was love, or passion, or some soul-deep connection, maybe I could have chalked it up to fate being cruel. But this. I shook my head. This was cowardice. Less dressed up as confusion. And you knew. For months. You watched me plan this wedding while holding on to a truth that would destroy it. He looked like he wanted to fall to his knees. I didn't let him. Get out, Caleb. He hesitated. Get out. He did. And that's when I locked the door behind him. Not just the door to that motel room, but the one in my heart that used to keep space for him. The next morning, I woke up to a phone full of messages. Some from guests, confused and concerned. Some from family, trying to make sense of the silence. And one, from Samantha. No text. Just a voicemail. I played it with my thumb hovering over the delete button, already numb to the sound of her voice. Luke, she began, voice quiet. Hollow. I don't expect forgiveness. I don't even expect a reply. But I need you to know. I never planned to fall for him. I didn't even realize it was happening until I'd already stepped too far off the edge. And by the time I tried to stop it, I didn't know how. You've always been the good one. The anchor. But part of me got scared of being safe. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Click. That was it. Not a single word about the photos. Not a single explanation for how she could kiss me one day and lie with him the next. Just fear. Fear dressed up like a reason. I didn't call her back. Instead, I sat on the edge of that motel bed. Through the thin curtains, a neon vacancy sign blinked in steady rhythm, red, then dark, then red again. And I let the silence do what it needed to. Caleb didn't reach out again, but others did. Mark offered his couch. Aunt June left me a voicemail in her Sunday church voice, telling me to walk with grace, not rage. Even my dad, who usually stayed quiet unless something needed fixing, sent a message that simply said, "You did the right thing. The hard thing is usually the right one. Proud of you." I stared at that text longer than I expected, because for most of my life, I'd done the right thing without applause, without acknowledgement. I didn't ask for it, but when it came, especially from someone like my dad, it stuck. 3 days after the wedding that wasn't, I went back to our apartment. Samantha had already moved her things out, or at least, most of them. Her jewelry box was still on the dresser, empty, but there, like a ghost of something once precious. The fridge still had her almond milk and half a bottle of white wine we'd planned to open the night of the rehearsal dinner. I poured it out. Didn't say a word. Just let it swirl down the drain like something that should have never aged in the first place. And then I did something unexpected. I called my mother. We hadn't spoken since the wedding day. She'd been devastated, not angry, just heartbroken that her youngest son had been betrayed so close to forever. When she picked up, her voice cracked. "Hi, sweetheart." I didn't break. Not yet. But when she asked, "How are you holding up?" I finally exhaled. "I don't know," I said. But I'm not pretending anymore. That night, I opened a new notebook. Blank pages. Fresh start. And on the first one, I wrote, things I know for sure. I did the right thing. People show you who they are. Believe them. Betrayal doesn't just break your heart, It scrambles your compass. Healing is ugly, but hiding is worse. I want to love again, but only if it's real. A week passed. Then two. The call slowed. The text stopped. Life, in its stubborn way, kept going. I went back to work. Took the long way home some days, just to avoid the bakery where she used to get our favorite almond croissants. Started running again. Not for fitness, for silence. For clarity. It was on one of those runs, rounding the corner by the lake, when I saw her. No, not Samantha. Claire. A friend of a friend. We'd met once, briefly, at a dinner party months ago. I remembered her because she'd said something that stuck with me. Most people listen to respond. I like listening to understand. She waved. I slowed. Nodded. She didn't ask how I was. Didn't say. I heard what happened. Just walked beside me for a while. And when we reached the end of the trail, she said, "You look different." I asked what she meant. Like someone who finally stopped carrying something that wasn't theirs. That night, I didn't cry. Didn't rage. I just sat with that sentence. And realized, she was right. What Caleb and Samantha did, that was on them. What I chose next, that was on me. And for the first time since everything broke, I felt the faintest sense of forward. I didn't hear from Caleb for almost 2 months. Not a text. Not an email. Not even a forwarded meme. The kind he used to send at 2 a.m. with nothing but "This is us" in the subject line. I figured he'd crawled into whatever cave he'd built for himself, guilt, shame, or maybe just convenience. That was his pattern. When life got messy, Caleb disappeared. Let other people clean up the fallout. And then one night, maybe 8 weeks in, give or take, he finally called. It was 10:47 p.m. I was up, half watching a documentary, half rearranging my bookshelves for no reason other than the need for something I could control. His name flashed on the screen. I didn't answer. He called again. Still didn't pick up. Third time, I hit accept. Didn't speak. Just listened. He started slow, voice rough like he hadn't used it in a while. "You don't owe me anything. I know that. But I need to tell you something I should have said the day I gave you that envelope." My chest tightened. I didn't say a word. "It wasn't just a mistake," he said. "Not for me. It started that way, stupid, reckless, but it turned into something else." I closed my eyes. "I didn't want to tell you," he continued, "because I was afraid. Afraid I'd lose you. Afraid it would look like I wanted her more than I wanted to keep my brother. But the truth is, I got caught in something I didn't know how to end. I told myself it was temporary, that it didn't mean anything. But I knew better. And I kept going anyway. There it was. The thing I'd suspected. But hearing it, it still landed like a punch. "And Samantha?" I asked, my voice quieter than I expected. Was she planning to marry me? Or was she just waiting for me to figure it out? "She said she didn't know," Caleb replied. "Said she loved you, but she felt trapped. Like the wedding was a train she couldn't get off without wrecking everything. She wrecked it anyway," I said. He didn't argue. Just let the silence stretch between us. Then he said something that surprised me. "She ended it. With me. 2 weeks before the wedding." I blinked. "Why?" "She said she owed you the truth. Said she wanted to try. Said if she married you, she wanted to mean it. But she didn't know how to tell you without wrecking everything." I let that sink in. "So she tried to come back. To recommit. To clean the slate. But never told me, maybe out of fear I'd see it as manipulation instead of honesty." "Why are you telling me this now?" I asked. "Because I thought you deserved to know she wasn't still cheating," he said. "That whatever you saw in her wasn't completely fake." I laughed once, bitter and sharp. "Caleb, the affair wasn't the only betrayal. The silence was. The pretending. The speeches. The toasts. You stood next to me in that suit knowing what you'd done. Knowing who she'd been with." He didn't speak right away. Just looked down, like the weight of it finally caught up. "I know," he said quietly. "I didn't just betray you. I performed it. And I'll carry that for the rest of my life. Not because you asked me to, but because I finally see what I destroyed." "Good," I said. "Because I won't." Then I hung up. And for the first time since it happened, I felt something shift. Not forgiveness. Not yet. But I'd stopped trying to hold his guilt for him. Later that week, I ran into Samantha. It was at a bookstore of all places. She looked different. Hair shorter. Makeup lighter. She was holding a stack of poetry books and wearing a sweater I once bought her for Christmas. We both froze. Then she stepped forward, hesitant. "Luke, I'm not here for closure," I said. "I'm not here for a scene. You don't owe me anything." She nodded. "But I owe myself a chance to say something." I waited. She swallowed hard. "I thought I wanted passion. I thought that meant danger, secrets, adrenaline. But you were peace. You were home. And I didn't know how to live inside that without trying to burn it down." I didn't flinch. She continued. "You weren't the mistake. The wedding wasn't the mistake. I was. I was still chasing a version of myself that didn't exist. And I hurt the one person who never asked me to be anything but honest. I looked at her, and I didn't feel hate. I didn't feel love, either. Just distance. Like watching a movie I'd already seen, knowing how it ends. No desire to sit through it again. I hope you find what you're looking for, I said. She nodded, eyes damp, but no tears fell. She didn't ask for another chance. Didn't ask if I missed her. She just turned, paid for her books, and walked out of my story. Later that night, I pulled out my notebook, turned to a fresh page. Things I know for sure. Part 2. Love isn't a performance. It's a practice. People can be sorry and still not be safe. Trust isn't about being perfect. It's about being real, even when it's messy. Peace costs more than pride, but it's worth the price. Closure isn't about what they say. It's about what you stop needing to hear. And I slept that night. Really slept. No nightmares. No questions. Just quiet. Like the truth had finally stopped pacing the halls of my heart. 2 months after the bookstore run-in, I got an invitation. Not to a wedding. To a birthday. My father's, actually. Turning 70. One of those milestone things where everyone's supposed to show up, act cordial, and pretend the family photos on the mantle aren't just set pieces in a play no one remembers auditioning for. I wasn't going to go, but then Mom called. Said, he'd want you there. Not, Caleb will be there. Not, don't let this ruin the family. Just that. And maybe that's why I went. Not for Caleb. Not even for Dad, if I'm honest. I went because I needed to see what it would feel like to stand in a room that used to feel like home, with the man who made it unlivable. The house hadn't changed much. Same shaggy carpet, same humming refrigerator, same faint smell of coffee and aging wood. But the weight was different. I walked in with my chin up and my stomach braced, like stepping into a room full of old echoes. And there he was, Caleb, by the fireplace, laughing at something my uncle said, head thrown back, drink in hand. That laugh I'd heard my whole life. That same damn ease he wore like a jacket no one else could pull off. Our eyes met. The room didn't go quiet. The music didn't stop. But something shifted. He made his way toward me, slow and cautious. People watched, pretending they weren't. He stopped a few feet away. Hey, he said. Hey, I wasn't sure you'd come. I wasn't either. A long pause. Then he nodded. You look good. You don't get to say that, I replied. Calm. No edge. Just the truth. His jaw tightened. Just a little. I'm sorry, he said. I know you've heard it, but I'm saying it anyway. Again. In case it ever starts to mean something. It doesn't, I said. Not yet. That stung. I saw it. He didn't argue. Just gave a slow nod and stepped aside. I didn't follow. Didn't smile. Just walked past him toward the kitchen. And the weight lifted, just slightly, because I realized something important. Forgiveness isn't an open door. It's a boundary line. And you don't have to cross it just because someone's standing on the other side. Later that night, Dad pulled me aside. Said he was proud of me for showing up. Said family wasn't about being perfect. It was about being present. And I told him something I'd been holding for months. I'm done carrying things that other people refuse to admit they dropped. He didn't quite understand it. Didn't have to. Because I wasn't saying it for him. I was saying it for me. That weekend, I started making changes. Small ones. I sold the bed frame Samantha picked out. Donated the rug Caleb once spilled wine on and swore he'd replace. Took down the engagement photo in the hallway. Replaced it with a picture of the Grand Canyon I took on a solo trip. No faces. Just vastness. Just space. Then I did something bigger. I quit the job I hated. Started freelancing. It wasn't reckless. I'd planned. Saved. But it felt bold in a way I hadn't allowed myself to feel in years. Like I was finally living in a life that was mine, not just the one that made sense on paper. Claire showed up again. Not like a surprise twist. More like a full circle. She texted one afternoon. Hey, I have a dumb question. Want to get coffee and pretend we're strangers with interesting lives? I said yes. Not because I was ready for something new, but because I was finally ready for something honest. We met at a small place with mismatched mugs and the kind of music you don't notice until it stops. We didn't talk about Samantha or Caleb. We talked about books, work, childhood snacks, why people cry in airports. And when I told her I was finally learning how to enjoy silence, she smiled. Said, that's how you know the noise is behind you. That night, I drove home without music, just the hum of the tires and the soft pulse of headlights on asphalt. And I realized something I hadn't said out loud yet. I didn't want revenge. Didn't want closure, even. I wanted peace. And peace doesn't show up with a fight. It shows up when you stop fighting. When you stop needing the people who hurt you to say the right thing in the right way at the right time. It shows up when you stop checking your rear view for wreckage. Before I went to sleep, I pulled out the notebook again. Things I know for sure, Part 3. Some people never say sorry in a way that heals you. Heal anyway. Family is not an automatic pass. It's a relationship like any other, built or broken. Forgiveness is not forgetting. It's refusing to rot from the inside out. Peace isn't loud. It's quiet because it doesn't need to prove itself. You don't owe anyone access to the version of you that had no boundaries. I closed the notebook and slept like a man who wasn't waiting for an apology anymore. 1 year. That's how long it's been since I stood at the altar and didn't say, I do. It snuck up on me, honestly. No calendar alert. No ominous cloud hanging overhead. Just a morning like any other, except quieter. Still. Solid. Like the world had stopped holding its breath around me. I spent the day doing things I love. Coffee from the good place. A walk through the park where the trees arch overhead like a cathedral without walls. I even stopped by a bookstore, not to avoid something, but because I wanted to be there. I let my phone stay in my pocket. Didn't check social media. Didn't scroll for ghosts. Grief didn't show up. Regret didn't either. Just gratitude. And maybe that's the real ending, the one no one sees coming. Not a second chance. Not revenge. Just peace. I still think about them sometimes. Caleb. Samantha. Not with rage. Not with longing. But like you think about a road you used to drive before you found a better one. I heard Caleb moved away. New job. New city. Same last name. But we haven't spoken since Dad's birthday. He sent a card last Christmas. No return address. Just a quote scribbled inside. Sometimes the hardest part of leaving is realizing you were already gone. I didn't reply. Not because I'm bitter. Because some bridges don't need rebuilding. They just need to stay broken. And Samantha? She's around. Or so I hear. Through mutuals. Through moments. She hasn't tried to reach out. And that's good. Because I've stopped needing her to explain why she set the house on fire when I'd already handed her the key. Claire and I? We're good. Not a movie montage. Not some whirlwind redemption arc. Just two people who show up, coffee, books, the occasional hike that turns into a 3-hour conversation about childhood, forgiveness, and the weird stuff people say when they're scared of being real. We're not labeling anything. We're not rushing. But it's honest. And in a world that so often values appearance over truth, that feels sacred. There's this shelf in my living room now. Not the one where the wedding photos were supposed to go. A new one. Wood. Sturdy. I built it myself. It holds things I love. Dog-eared books, a small plant I haven't killed, a Polaroid of me laughing, really laughing from that first post-wedding solo trip, and a photo of my mom. Because through all of this, she stayed. Showed up when I needed silence. Held space without demanding answers. She's the reason I believe love isn't always loud. Sometimes, it just stays. Last night, I pulled out that notebook one final time. The one I started in the wreckage. I turned to the last page. Things I know for sure, final list. The person who betrays you teaches you what your boundaries should have been. The person who heals you reminds you they're worth keeping. Rock bottom is loud, but healing is quiet. You're allowed to start over, even if the invitations were already sent. A canceled wedding isn't a failure. It's a promise to yourself that your future won't be built on a lie. Real love doesn't arrive with fireworks. It arrives with clarity, and it never asks you to question your worth. So here's where I leave this story. Not at a wedding, not at a funeral, but in the middle of a life I chose, one rooted in truth, steadiness, and slow-burning joy. I'm not the man I was a year ago. I don't need to be, because I'm not carrying a folder full of betrayal anymore. I'm carrying a life that fits in my own hands. And this time, it's all mine.